And look at the jersey's ripped. He just shredded the jersey.
I think it's a horse collar. Let's see this right at the end. Great job by Reddick exploding, getting there. But right there, does he grab the back right there?
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. Here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B here on this Monday. Back live, by the way. Back live and direct, Monday, November the 27th, 2023. An Eagles Victory Monday. That's right, 10-1 are your Philadelphia Eagles as a result of a 37-34 victory over the Buffalo Bills yesterday in overtime, propelling the Eagles not only to 10-1, not only to the best record in the National Football League, but a playoff spot, a clinched playoff berth, the first team to do so in the NFL in 2023. And boy, are you feeling good? Can I hear you? Is everybody feeling good out there? Does everybody have that vibe?
Let's make some noise. Come on.
All right, Nick Foles has got the vibe, I guess, but I'm not hearing much of it. I hear the same chatter I've been hearing over the past 10 weeks, and that is the paper champion Philadelphia Eagles. Because once again, folks, if you didn't watch it, I'm about to recap it. I'm going to give you the summary of this game. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for the summary? Get your pens, your papers out, because here is the summary. It's going to get intricate. It's going to get tricky. You're going to have to follow along every single word I say. Here's the summary. Just watch every other single Eagles game this season, and that'll give you the story here on Sunday, as the Eagles did exactly the same thing they've done all year long, to include pulling it out with the victory there. But another just poor. What did Jalen Hurts have a QBR in the first half? A 7 was his QBR heading into the half yesterday, but another piss-poor performance from the Eagles in the first half, followed up by yet another rousing comeback as the team found itself down by 10 points twice in the second half, battled its way back. Jake Elliott, the big day, the 59-yard field goal as time was expiring to send the game in overtime, and then eventually Jalen Hurts would take the game into his own feet as he would score the game-winning touchdown in OT, propelling the Eagles to victory. And I feel it, man. I'm on board, man. I am 100% convinced that this team is a Super Bowl championship caliber team. No, I'm not. All right. Yesterday did absolutely nothing to convince me of what I already believe to be the truth about this football team. They are a paper champion. They are a fraud, much like their GM, Howie Roseman is. And unfortunately for the Philadelphia Eagle fan base, we're going to be the ones when that other foot or the other shoe goes kaplunk. It's going to be us that have to deal with the heartache and the headaches that's going to follow that as the Eagles continue to take us on this wild roller coaster, fun-filled ride through the 2023 season. Yesterday, if you watched the beginning of the show, you saw I kind of let in with the horse theme, right? Because that was one of the most egregious missed calls I've ever seen in my life as Hassan Reddick. Horse collars. That's right. He horse collared him. Josh Allen down to the ground. No call. Stalled out a Buffalo Bill drive, which led to, again, which was kind of leading into the narrative of the Eagles' victory on Sunday. And that's kind of how we're going to look at this game today because, as you know, I host a show every week with the Eagles' #1 Howie Roseman apostle himself, Kyle Quinn, and we're going to break down the X's and O's of this thing. But tonight, I'm going to come at this more in a philosophical, spiritual way about how not only did the Eagles not deserve the win, but neither did the Buffalo friggin' Bills, as they continuously handed the game back to the Eagles. Unfortunately, for the Eagles' sake, they couldn't put them down. Could not put them down. Could not give them the mercy that they deserved after yet another piss-poor first half. Allow the Eagles to continue to hang around and allow the Eagles to pump their fan base full of this false green Kool-Aid that the Eagles are any good this year. And that's really kind of boils down with me here, folks. It's not old-fashioned hate speech. I'm not on that rant tonight. I am on the rant of parity, because last night I had the unique opportunity to sit in and take care of some post-game business here on the network. Had a great time doing it. But it was brought to my attention, and I already knew it, but it was brought to my attention by our boy Big Al, that the NFL is the league of parity this year. And he could not have hit that thing more square on the head, because it is. There is not one team out there, yes, to include the Eagles, that is not heads and shoulders above the others. There's some bad teams out there. And then for me, it's everybody else is kind of like there, the pack, a little bit ahead of the pack, a little bit above the pack. There is no clear dominant team in the National Football League, yes, and to include the Eagles. And the Eagles are benefactors of that. And I'm not going to sit here and say that should be something not allowed. No, absolutely. If they can ride this thing to a Super Bowl championship, then fine. That is what the end state is for everybody. But to sit here at 10-1, and I cannot believe I'm actually, I have this mindset that I don't believe 10-1. How in the hell does 10-1 happen? And no, I am not going to sit back and enjoy it. I am not going to be like, well, we got to take this one game at a time. They're going to try to fix this. We don't even talk that anymore. Have you noticed that, folks? No one's talking about trying to clean this up anymore. It's almost like we've resigned ourselves that this is what the Eagles are. A team that is apparently not prepared to start any game, but somehow makes these miraculous halftime adjustments and comes back and wins. And that's an acceptable form of coaching. That's an acceptable form of fan watching. Well, I heard the fans yesterday are booing the team off the field in the first half. They're booing them off the field in the first half. And yet they come back and they find a way to win. I don't know how they're doing it. I really don't. Nick Sirianni, I read something today where he slept in his office for 2 days last week while they were preparing for this game. Why the hell is he sleeping there? What are they doing? They're not preparing. What do they do all day? They party at the NovaCare complex? Because it seems like all the preparations that this team is doing for the game is happening in game or at the half. Because I don't understand what the game plan is, because it's the same result week after week, regardless of the quarterback that they face. And as I said, I'm not going to get X's and O's. That's saved for Saturday when I talk with Kyle. But yeah, we're going to dig into this a little bit. We're going to dig into how I feel that the Eagles were benefactors of the referees and the benefactors of a poor opponent, a team that allowed them to hang around, allowed them to steal the game at the end. The Bills had an opportunity with the game tied to 20 seconds and a timeout, and they decided to kill the clock. I mean, come on. What's the harm there? You got 20 seconds and one timeout. You're operating from your own 25-yard line. You got to get up to around the 40-yard line of the other team. You can do that in one or two plays with 20 seconds left and then burn that final timeout to try to at least attempt a game-winning field goal. Just puzzling. And then, of course, the penalties. And, yeah, I know I'm being a hypocrite tonight. I've always sat here on this show and said I'm never going to blame or give credit to the referees for anything because they're part of the game. I happen to be one of them, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's their fault that we lost, or it's their fault we won. But I cannot overlook what happened yesterday. Egregious missed calls on the Eagles. The horse collar play. Come on. I know people have had about 24 hours to digest that play. It was a horse collar, plain and simple. I don't care how you say he ripped his jersey. Yeah, but it was his free hand, which was the horse collar hand. All right? Then it was the 2 pass interference calls that were not made against the Eagles. We bitched and we moaned in the Super Bowl about, the ticky-tackness. I don't hear anybody. I hear crickets when it comes to that. Darius Slay, a horrible game yesterday. Should have been victimized for a couple penalties, but he wasn't. We don't want to go there. We want to talk about the resilience of the team. We want to talk about how strong they are, how much they're fighters and all that. No, they were friggin' lucky. And that luck is bound to run out as we get deeper into this. So, 10-1, let's get on for the ride. Enjoy it. But is anybody out there really happy? Is anybody out there really satisfied? Are you really feeling that good about yourselves? We had a bunch of injuries yesterday. The Eagle weak linebacker core got weaker. And then you had the Lane Johnson stuff. He couldn't go because of a pulled hamstring or whatnot. What's the gauge here? And, I used to say on this program, well, next week, here comes the real test. I'm not saying that anymore because I don't know if there's a real test out there. I really don't. I don't know if there's a team out there that's a dominant team. I already said this. There doesn't seem to be any dominant teams out there. Every year when I was growing up, you can count on 3 to 4 teams being that team. Typically in my generation, it was the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Redskins, the Giants, the sprinkle in the Broncos here and there. Those were the teams that you knew every year, heads and shoulders above everybody else. And everybody else was just kind of like pecking at their heels, trying to get a little bit of table scraps, right? There is not that kind of thing going on in the NFL. Is that a good or bad thing? Does it open the door for a lot more possibilities? I think a lot of people would say that it's a good thing, and it might be. But yeah, I'm just, I keep sitting here wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. And the deeper we get into this, the more concerned I begin to get about when that other shoe is going to drop. And don't listen to the Eagles apostles. Don't listen to the ones wearing the green sunglasses, trying to pump you up with false rhetoric. This team has issues. This team has slow start issues. This team has issues when it comes to defense. This team's offensive play calling leaves a lot to be, desired. Don't listen to it's the fight, the dog mentality, the resilience. No, listen, don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. That is not accurate. What is accurate is that they're getting lucky. They're getting lucky with some of the opponents that they're facing are not taking advantage of the opportunities that are being presented to them, and neither are the Eagles until the very end. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. This road is going to end in disaster. This road will not end with a Super Bowl championship. This road will end in a disaster, a head-on collision in Las Vegas, which I firmly believe they'll get there because of, as I mentioned, the parity. But 10-1, how you feeling out there? How's everybody feeling about this football team right now? Is everybody going to pump their chest at me and tell me, they're a Super Bowl contender? Is everyone going to pump up their chest and tell me that they are a Super Bowl winning team? I'm waiting. I want to hear from you. Give me a shout out, and let's discuss that. Steven checks in. Steven, how you doing? Used to think parity was a good thing, but everyone is hot garbage without a QB like Brady out there anymore, or defensive captain like Ray Lewis. You know what, Steven? Is that bottom line, though? As coaching also have something to do with it? Is today's athlete and the way they're raised and trained and brought up, does that have something to do with it too? I think it has a lot to do with our generation and our social climate too, of why things are the way they are. I don't think the NFL wants things to get back to the one-sided tip. I don't think the NFL wants to have a league full of real alphas anymore. I think they like this oogie kind of huggy, feely, touchy world. And that's my point as well. Eagles Cowboys, the greatest rivalry on the face of the earth, is destroyed right now because there's no real hate there anymore. Our fan bases don't hate each other. We got a bunch of millennials who don't know what pain is when it comes to this football team. They don't know what it was like staring up at the Dallas Cowboys for 25 years. No, all they know is the success what Andy Reid brought them and what their fathers told them about the real story about the Eagles Cowboys. So is it more than just what you said about quarterbacks and defensive captains? Is it wider spread than that? And is it ever going to fix itself? I'm not saying I necessarily want it to fix itself. I like the parity. I do. I like the fact that you have a team like the Detroit Lions who have been licking boot heels for years, but now all of a sudden find themselves in a position of contending. I like that. It's good to see some new faces. It's good to see the Green Bay Packers, down there at the bottom of the basement, the New England Patriots down there in last place. I like to see things like that. But at what cost has it affected the NFL? Steven says, Matty B in full Gen X mode today. Yes, I am class of 91, Steven, so I feel you. Gen X forever, brother. I got you, man. So listen, we're going to get into that. We got some flyers to talk about. We got some, I'm not going to really dwell too much into the Phillies as we are moving kind of into the slower part of the offseason. I believe the owners' meetings are going to be in full swing on December 3rd through the December 6th in Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously, that is particularly where we see more of the bigger trades made during the offseason, is during that time frame when all the owners and GMs are in one spot. Are the Phillies going to be actively in pursuit of any top big-name MLB players? I do believe there's holes on that bench that need to be addressed, but I don't know if that's going to come via a trade. I don't know what kind of free agent signings they are going to explore at this point with the Nola contract already done. The rumors about the Japanese pitchers still persisting out there. So the Phillies, listen, let the Phillies lie. Let's kind of center our attention on the two sports that really matter most to me, is football and hockey. But before we do that, let me open up my book here, because we've entered the stage of the program, which is your day in Philadelphia sports history. And this week, or tonight, this segment of the show is brought to you by the good folks over there at Sherry's Tickets. That's right, Sherry's Tickets. Great prices, no hidden fees for sports, concert, theater tickets. www.sherrytickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. Save an additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10. So head over to Sherry's Tickets right now. After you watch this. So on this date, November 27th, I go way back to 1949, and again, contrary to popular belief, I was not in attendance when this happened. The Eagles, Steve Van Buren, was the first running back in 16 years of the NFL, and the second player overall to rush for over 200 yards in a single game, collecting 205 yards in a 34-17 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The record had staying power. It was broken in 2013 by LaShawn McCoy in that vaunted snow game against the Lions. He rushed for 217 yards. The whole 200-yard-a-game thing is more of a common occurrence these days in the NFL, but back in 49, Steve Van Buren was the first Eagle to do it, and as I said, the sixth player in NFL history to do it. So a Eagle-related this day in Philadelphia sports history, brought to you by, as I mentioned, one last time, Sherry's Ticket Town, www.sherrystickets.com, family owned and operated since 1946. Make sure you head over to Sherry's Tickets right now and make them your only ticket destination as you prepare for the playoffs. That's right, because we are back in the playoffs. As I mentioned, it is a done deal. Eagles in the playoffs. And how you feeling about that? So, as I mentioned, we're not going to necessarily get into the X's and O's, but there's a couple other things I want to talk about in this game. Some of the stats that grabbed me, as they typically do. The Eagles yesterday scored 7 first-half points. Again, as their putrid first-half productions continue, their putrid first-half preparation, execution, and game plan continues. 7 points yesterday. Now they've scored 145 points in the first half of the season. That's about 13 points a half. But they did run off 30 points yesterday in the second half, to include overtime, which now 172 points and 15.5 points per game. Really an interesting stat. Last season, the team couldn't get out of its own way in the second half, or couldn't find its way to the end zone in the second half. Now there might be something to what Kyle Quinn had told me about that, with, maybe because the Eagles were blowing people out last year, they took their foot off the gas and whatnot and kind of let things up. This year, obviously, you better be scoring points in the second half, because they're not scoring much in the first half. But there is your first half, second half point distribution, not only in the game yesterday, but for the season overall. Star Wars 99 says, just need to get the first week by now. So yes, I mean, listen, we got 6 games left. San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, and then Drek, right down the end of the season. What is it? The Giants, Cardinals, Giants to wrap things up. The first round bye really is kind of in balance. And this Sunday, I mean, for what it is, an Eagle win, Eagle loss, they come back from 40 points in the second half and win. Whatever happens on Sunday, it's going to be really crucial in how this season kind of plays out for both of these teams. The Eagles are in desperate need. If a win happens on Sunday, it's signed, sealed, and delivered just about when it comes to the Eagles wrapping up number one overall. And obviously, when they get Dallas coming up the week after that, the division should be wrapped up at that point too. But this weekend is really for all the money. And as I'm going to touch a little bit on the 49ers and that fake rivalry that's apparently now between the Eagles and Niners and all that. I'll touch on that a little bit. But this week is definitely, if you're going to gear everything up, and if everything has to point to one direction, if everything has to settle in on one spot, and if there was a week that the Eagles need to, muster up some more of that magic that they've had all season long, and this is the one, right? This is the game that you need. You need it bad. You need it real bad. And if they're going to take us through the ride that they've taken us all season, it's going to be an interesting afternoon in South Philly. It truly will be. But more on that a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, so absolutely, first round bye is key. Steve says, I probably won't feel perfect about Birds unless Maddox, Roby, Slay, Bradbury, Byard, Blank, Leonard, Cunningham, Reddick, Sweat, Carter, Davis are all in and starting. Okay, so you're actually, are you Shaq Leonard? Are you actually penciling him in as a starter on this team? Has he signed? I must have missed that. As far as I know, he hasn't signed with the Eagles. He's not a member of the team right now. You mentioned some of these players. Maddox ain't coming back. I mean, he's not. It would be really probably hurt the Eagles more to put Maddox in this situation right now. The secondary already is still trying to kind of find themselves. The players that are currently in the secondary are working on chemistry. You throw Maddox into the mix. He's coming off of a major knee injury, and you're going to try to be like, hey, get out there and defend in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. I'm not a big fan of bringing Maddox back at this point. It's a wash on him for the season. Plus, anyway, what has really told you in his past, in his injury-ridden past, that Avonte Maddox is going to get back on the field this year? I think that's kind of a pipe dream a little bit, Stephen. As far as Slay and Bradbury go, what a down year for both of them. As I mentioned yesterday, some of the most crucial plays in this game came down to Darius Slay missed penalties. I mean, he was beat bad. He was beat hard. He consistently was finding himself out of position, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to waste time talking about the imperfections or the flaws. We're going to gloss over them like they're a nuisance, like they're a mosquito buzzing around your ear, but we're not going to sit here and address it. We're just going to address this ridiculousness notion that this team is charmed, that they're running off of some sort of magical formula that makes them win second half games. We're not going to sit here as a fan base, and here on the Edge of Philly Sports, we're the worst at it. We are the absolute worst at trying to pinpoint and be critical of this team because of their flaws. We gloss over it for the bigger and better picture of 10-1. We're not going to sit here and try to inform our fan base that this team has significant issues. And one of those issues has been the play of Darius Slay and James Bradbury to a lesser extent. Both of them are having down seasons. Darius Slay, they missed a pass interference penalty on him with the 5:14 left in the second half down by the Eagles goal line. And then he missed a holding penalty on him in overtime. Blatant penalties. How much time or how many more times is Slay going to get away with something like that before they flag him? But we're not going to sit here. We're not going to address that. We're just going to continue to run this thing out under this ridiculous notion that we're destined to win the Super Bowl with this flawed football team. And I want everybody out there right now to call out everybody on this network. Every show you get on this week, and you should tune into all of them because they're great. But every single show, I want you to hit them with the criticisms. I want you to hit them with the X's and the O's and the numbers. I want you to go deep and force these hosts to address their demons, which is the fact that they don't want to criticize the Philadelphia Eagles, that they want to surf on the green wave to victory. They can't get away with that, folks. You must hold them accountable. You must hold them to their integrity. Their journalistic integrity is at stake here. Call them out. Be critical of them. Don't let them get away with everything is going to be all right. It's not. and they must be held accountable. Boy, I'm feeling good tonight, folks. That's right. I am feeling good. Maddox is it's a pec injury. I thought it was a knee injury. When did it happen? Like week 2? Maybe that could change things, Steve. Why did I think that was a knee injury? Maybe that was his last injury, but that could change things. But still, when you have a secondary that's trying to figure themselves out and they're having trouble with that, I don't know, adding Avonte Maddox, who has injury problems of his own, trying to stay on the field is the perfect way to get through all that. A little bit, some more stats from yesterday's game, and you're going to hear these again with Kyle on Saturday. Penalties. The Eagles, 4 penalties for 30 yards yesterday. In stark contrast to the 11 penalties for 80 yards for the Buffalo Bills. On the narrative of, you know what, the Bills should be held majorly accountable for the fact that they could not finish the deal against the Eagles because of the penalties. Now, is there something about the ref who worked the game, has worked the last 4 Eagles games since Nick's, or has worked 4 Eagles games in the Nick Sirianni era, and the Eagles are 4-0 in those games. Is there something to that? I don't know, man. That horse collar, baby. Woo-hoo-hoo. I don't know. But listen, 11 penalties for 80 yards for the Buffalo Bills yesterday. They also dropped 6 passes. So you got to do something. You got to win these games. You got to do your job too. And the Bills did it. And neither did the Chiefs. And neither did the other 8 teams that the Eagles ended up beating this year. So it's not all on the magical formula of the Eagles. The Eagles have just run into some teams that just don't want to win. And I can't fault the Eagles for winning. I can't. But I can fault for this overinflated sense that we are going anywhere this year, that we're going to take this thing to the promised land. Listen, we're going to win the division, hands down. We're going into the playoffs. They already clinched. They're potentially, more than likely, on their way to the NFC Championship game here in Philadelphia. And then off to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. But unless it ends with a Super Bowl trophy in my hands, that's right, my hands, it's all for nothing, folks. It's absolutely all for nothing. And then we're going to listen to the excuses. We're going to listen to it like we listened to it this offseason in the Arizona series. Oh, I'm just happy they got there. What kind of crap is that, man? I'm just happy they got there. I'm just happy for the magical 10-1 season. I'm just happy that they made it fun. No, they didn't. They yanked the carpet out from underneath you just like they do every year. It matters about Super Bowl. And I preface all this by saying, I hope the hell I am wrong. And I hope we can stand shoulder to shoulder on Broad Street, which I'm probably going to go nowhere near because people are going to want to kill me. But still, here's the deal. You got to look at this thing clearly. Don't cloud yourself. Don't gloss over the 10-1 and say everything's going to be okay. It's okay to be critical, even with a 10-1 football team, even with a football team that is potentially going to go on a deep playoff run. It's okay to be critical, and it's okay not to feel comfortable in what the product that you're watching, because the product is garbage. You're seeing all the the confetti and all the smoke in the mirrors with the second half comebacks. Man, you got to look at this thing holistically, and we got to hold the media, we got to hold the players, we got to hold ownership to higher standards. Because if it doesn't work out, we're going to hear the excuses with saying, I'm not making excuses. We're going to hear them. And I don't want to deal with that anymore, man. I want a Super Bowl. I want a championship. And it's okay for me to want that. And it's also okay for me not to feel comfortable that this team, this one, with all its flaws and with all of its BS, is going to deliver that for me. I'm not on board at all. I'm enjoying it, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch the miraculous comebacks, but I've seen it before. Cinderella comes to the ball, or the clock strikes midnight, whatever you want to say, eventually, and then talent, scheme, coaching rises to the top, and we're left back there looking at 10-1 like it was with this great achievement when we did not win the Super Bowl. Some of these slay plays are on the corner, or coordinator having him intentionally playing. Sorry about that. Some of these plays are on the corner, having him intentionally playing a trail technique and trying to stop the shorter route on the blitz. That's defy and slay. Okay, I get that, but not the 2 penalties that I am addressing on this network right now. What's his name? Big Play Slay, right? or Big Penalty Slay. What's his nickname? Listen, the 2 penalties that I saw him, he was playing. It looked like to me he was playing man. That's what I saw. Now maybe he was playing more of his zone in that OT penalty potentially, but on the penalty in the second quarter down there on the goal line, he was playing man and he was draped all over. Was it Diggs? Right? He was like laying on him, and the thing wasn't called. Darius Slay, I was never on board with Darius Slay coming here. He has been in total fraud, a total zero. He's a liability out there right now. And again, this is part of that liability. Who feels comfortable with Darius Slay manning the end? Darius Slay, right? He's been taken off of his responsibilities of WR1. He doesn't really play that much. Was back in the day, right? We got our best cornerback on their best wide receiver. And that's it. Game to game, we're doing it every play. That's not the way the Eagles run it anymore. No, over there, you got Blankenship on WR1s. You see Bradbury playing you had Sidney Brown at one time playing the wide receiver ones. There's no faith. If the coaching staff doesn't have faith in Darius Slay to do his job, what he was paid to do and brought here to do throughout the whole game, then why should we, as a fan base, have faith and confidence in him for him to do his job when the team doesn't? That's all I'm saying, man. Brian Johnson got to do better. No kidding. But one thing I will give Brian Johnson, and I don't like to create the creativity with the offensive play calling, it might also get this team burned. There's a couple things I want to talk offensively about this team as you bring it up there, Star Wars 99. Red zone efficiency, 4 for 4 yesterday. On the season, 27 for 43, 63%. That has been on the consistent rise over the last 5 weeks. Kudos to the Eagles for that. But you know what else has been on the consistent rise over the last 3 weeks? Has been the resilience or the relying on Jalen Hurts to be a featured running back in this offense. 14 carries this week, 12 carries last week, 14 carries for DeAndre Swift this week, 12 carries for DeAndre Swift last week, 2 carries for Kenny Gainwell this week, 2 carries for Boston Scott this week, 2 carries for Kenny Gainwell last week, and 2 carries for Boston Scott. That is a dangerous formula, a dangerous recipe to be sticking your quarterback. Now, I get it. Some of those runs are not designed. Some of those runs, or maybe Jalen Hurts, the MVP, potentially ducking and running a little bit too early than he should be, which has been one of the regressions that I've seen from him all season. So I don't like that. I don't like that little balance of offensive or of run carries between Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift. That's not going to work. He's banged up now. He's got that knee injury. And to sit here and say that ain't bothering him, I saw him limping all over the place yesterday, and especially towards the end of the game. I think it was a run in overtime where he QB'd out right before the touchdown run. He got up gimping a little bit. Listen, he's hurt. He's grimacing. He's hurt. And we're going to continuously ride him to the ground. Before you know it, between Mariota's standing back there. It's not a good recipe. But the red zone offense, the red zone effectiveness is on the steady rise, and it's something that I want to see continue. It's a positive thing. But listen, Brian Johnson has definitely let things up to the imagination a lot this year. And now that Frank Reich is available, that's right, folks. Today, if you didn't hear the news, Frank Reich out as the head football coach of the Carolina Panthers, just 11 games into his career with Carolina, going with him or Deuce Staley and Josh McCown. So every Eagle coach, I guess he brought with him from Indianapolis and Detroit and Philadelphia out today in Carolina as the Panthers decide to make a move. So, hey, Frank Reich is available. I don't want him as an advisor. Bring him back in, make him the offensive coordinator. Let him see what he can do with Jalen Hurts in this offense. I would definitely be on board with that. I think we've seen enough of Brian Johnson. And I know one of the main focus off-season stories will be, if the Eagles do not win the Super Bowl, is the potential of making a change at offensive coordinator. It should be a change at GM and head coach, but they won't be talking that. But potentially a scapegoat and Brian Johnson and Sean Desai will probably be one of the hot topics discussed this offseason if the Philadelphia Eagles don't win the Super Bowl. Star Wars 9 says bench game will run with Swift in play action. Okay, again, I just told you how that is a horrible, horrible idea. Horrible idea. to do that. Right now, Jalen Hurts, because there's no other options right now. And Jalen Hurts seems to be that only other option. You can't do that. You're going to run Jalen Hurts into an early grave. He's not going to make it to the end of the season. There's got to be something else. Rashad Penny, again, I'm going to bang that drum because it's the only drum really I can bang because the running backs were so dreadfully dressed this offseason and not at all at the trade deadline. Howie Roseman, Executive of the Year. So I have to address the Penny thing. If he's not good enough, why is he not on the roster? Or why is he on the roster? Why haven't we upgraded the position? It's a dangerous formula, what they're doing here. It's a dangerous combination. It's dangerous what they're doing with so many runs in Jalen Hurts. It's going to bite him on the ass. I really believe that just because the more times you do something, the higher the odds of somebody getting hurt become. That's just the law of averages. But if Rashad Penny can't be a running back, then find somebody that can be. Go down to the practice squad. I don't know, do something. But somewhere along the line, some relief has got to come to that running back core. Jalen Hurts can't be that only guy. And unfortunately, you can't bench Kenny Gainwell because there's no other friggin' options. Because you have a running back in Penny that sits on this team collecting a paycheck but doesn't play. Thank you, GM Howie Roseman, Executive of the Year. So again, what I'm all in favor of that, but what is you say RPOs and run Swift? Swift's not going to make it through the season. He's not durable enough. There's got to be somebody else. There's got to be another option, and we don't have that option right now. And right now, that option is Kenny Gainwell. Unfortunately, man. Steven says, "What football team are you on board with?" Not the Birds. Listen, it's always the Birds, man. I'm not a fan of anybody else. I love the Eagles. I love them to death, Steven. Again, we get things twisted around here. I will never, ever set my allegiance anywhere but with the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's why I'm so friggin' pissed. Because I've seen what this franchise is capable of. I've seen the pinnacle of greatness. I've seen the mountaintop. We've got there one time in 57 and a half years of Super Bowl play. I've witnessed it. I drank from the fountain of the gods. And I want it more. But I don't believe we can do it under this culture, under this leadership. Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman are cancers and must be destroyed. And to save my franchise, to save my beloved Eagles, it has to happen. So no, there is no other team that I'm on board with. It is always, has, is, and will be the Philadelphia Eagles to the end of my life. I want someone to save my beloved franchise. Save it. Pluck it from the depths of hell and save it. Hallelujah. Oh, man. Slay was very good his first year here, but last year he seriously started to lose a step. Unfortunately, Howie's plan B had to be exercised in the moment. Mr. Disrespect Real failed market value class. Listen, I don't want to go down the Howie Roseman trail. Obviously, we all know why Slay was brought here. He was brought here to replace Malcolm Jenkins, right? I mean, that was the bottom line. And he did it. I don't think he ever lived up to the hype of what he was brought here to be. I honestly don't. He's had some good years. I never thought he lived up to that hype, though, ever. But right now, he is going downhill. So I don't know what the answer there is. Reich is a must consultant before Dougie P scoops him up for some magic. Steven, what the hell does a consultant do? When you say consultant, I imagine this boardroom with a bunch of guys in suits and people sitting around a table. And I guess Frank Reich in this situation sits there and the people are bouncing ideas back and forth. And then Frank Reich chimes in with an idea about something. Is that what the consultant does? Is he on the sidelines? Is he up there in the booth? I mean, what kind of power does he have? You can consult till the cows come home. At the end of the day, the coordinator is going to make the decision, or the head coach is going to make the decision. If you want the guy in the job, if you value the guy's opinion that much to make him a consultant, then friggin' make him the offensive coordinator. He's proven it. He's got the ring, and he's done it here. So you're right about the Dougie P thing. I don't think Frank Reich is going to find a job this year. What he say that he told the Charlotte Observer that he thinks his NFL run might be over now. His coaching run is not, but his NFL run is over. I don't know. I just, if you're going to do it, don't half-ass it. I don't just consultant nonsense. Make him the damn coordinator and be done with it. Swift and Boston Scott are 1 and 2. Okay, man, dude. Okay, what has Boston Scott done this year, last year, or any other year that makes you feel like he can be a valuable, a consistent number 2 threat against all the teams? Don't forget, we don't play the Giants every week, right? We're going to play other teams. So what has Boston Scott ever done to you to make you feel that he's ready for that step? Because he obviously hasn't done that for the Eagles. He barely makes the Eagles every year. He's always a late addition to the roster. And he always kind of is like that camp guy that everybody is like the veteran guy that knows is going to make the team and all that. And they kind of lean on him, but they also know his, I think he's more like a gimmick anymore. So, but listen, Boston Scott is not a viable option either. I don't think he has the durability to be a number 2. My number 2 is going to have to touch the ball about 25 times a game, right? Give or take, but both coming out of the backfield and coming out as a passer. We once viewed Boston Scott as the Brian Westbrook 2.0. That never kind of came to fruition at all. So no, it's a horrible decision. That would be worse than what we got right now, man. Consultant OC fired without being fired. See Paul Holmgren. Yeah, well, okay. So is that really the dynamic that Brian Johnson would be on the field asking Frank Reich what to do, or is Brian Johnson just standing there with a chatter in his headset and his talk button off? I mean, I don't know if that's true. Maybe that is it. But if that's the case, okay, I'm all on board with it. If a gun was to my head, who would you say wins the Super Bowl? You don't have to put a gun to my head. I'll tell you who wins the Super Bowl. Who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be Kansas City. I just think it's, at the end of the day, it'll be the Chiefs. They just got too much. And when it matters, and when that big game is on the line, who else would you want behind center than Pat Mahomes, right? Who else would you want on the sideline other than Andy Reid? Who else would you want as your tight end than Travis Kelce? I just honestly think it's Kansas City with the pedigree and with just the talent of the team. And search your feelings. You all know it to be true. You feel the same way. And unfortunately, one day, maybe one day, we can look at the Eagles, or the NFL will look at the Eagles in that light. But right now, it's not. To me, it's Kansas City. I picked Kansas City back in preseason, and I'm sticking with them. So, man, that's okay. That took a lot out of me, man. But thank you guys for commenting along. Remember, here on the Edge of Philly Sports, we do more than just comment. We enjoy local eateries and bar establishments like Dolan's down there on 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park, Pennsylvania, for Quizzo music, great times, and memorabilia giveaways. DolansBar.com. Go ahead and visit PJ over at Dolan's and tell him the good folks at Edge of Philly Sports sent you, and he'll take great care of you. One other stat I'm going to go over. You'll get these stat lines in nauseum here on Saturday with me and Kyle. But one other stat line I wanted to kind of go over with you is the turnovers committed. The Eagles committed 2 more turnovers on Sunday, now taking their total for the season up to 16. That averages out to about 1.5 per game. That's a stat that's been a very bad trend that this team has had issues with this year. We didn't have necessarily these problems last season. We're having problems holding on to the football this year. Yesterday, the Eagles committed 2 more, as I mentioned, one with the Kenny Gainwell confugery about was it going to be a handoff or is it going to be a pass, and that now raises our total up to 16. That stat's got to be cleaned up. Bottom line, that stat has got to be cleaned up if the Eagles want to make a deep run in this thing. They can't be turning the football over close to 2 times a game. That's just not going to happen. You don't win playoff games that way. You're not going to win them. You're not. And the worst thing, the 100% worst thing, and I'm going to transition off the Eagles because I've spent 45 minutes on this crazy rant about it. But the worst thing that you could have happen is a team going into the playoffs or a team going into the stretch run of the season at 10-1, where the Eagles are right now, thinking that they can basically play any way they want and get away with it because eventually some leprechaun's going to run across the field and then poof, it's all going to click. Well, that is the worst thing that you can have this team to start believing. And as I mentioned, I don't know if Nick Sirianni is the captain of the ship that I want to be able to say that he's in charge of ensuring that that doesn't happen, because I don't trust him for that. I don't trust Nick Sirianni worth a damn, be honest with you. So the Eagles cannot I fear they're slipping into a mindset to where they can do whatever they want to do and still recover from it. And that's overconfidence, that's arrogance, and that's going to hurt us as a team going forward. This season's not over. They've done a great job. Well, they've done a job up to this point. They're 10-1. They've clinched a playoff berth. They will go back and they will have another shot at winning a Super Bowl. That's guaranteed right now. They're in. But don't ever lose sight of the fact that you haven't won jack squat. Don't lose sight of the fact that you are not the defending champions, that somebody else holds that trophy and you're just like everybody else trying to get it. You got to stay hungry. And unfortunately, I don't think the Eagles are hungry right now. I think the Eagles are lucky. And I don't know how much longer that luck's going to last. And I don't want that going to their heads thinking that they are something more than what they really are. So that's another fear that I have with the way this team is playing. It's another concern I have with the way this team is operating right now. Is they're potentially operating under this thing of, oh, we can do whatever we want because we're going to be able to bounce back in the second half. Al mentioned it yesterday on the show. He mentioned that during the overtime period, when Buffalo was driving for that go-ahead field goal, that the team was very cool, calm, collected on the sidelines. I honestly thought it was different. I thought they were just disengaged. I don't think their heads were in this. I didn't see any emotion at all either way, yes, nay, or no. I didn't see nothing. Now, maybe that's just the way they are. I don't know. But I just don't want an arrogance to sneak into this team right now that could affect going forward, that you can accept this type of play. There's one thing to not like this type of play and, find yourself in this position and then fight your way out. It's a whole other thing to believe that you can fight your way out of anything no matter what. That's wrong. You let your guard down, you get sloppy, you commit turnovers, you commit penalties, and eventually someone's going to call those penalties. And then where are you going to be? You can't get into that mindset. That's another dangerous thing that the Eagles are playing with right now, is that mentality. Matty B, what drives your winning greed? The stories of this Cowboys 9 Celtics fan. Maybe all of the above, Stephen, actually, and you brought up a great point. I was thinking about bringing this up today. I guess they're on the, the PM on the AM or the Gobbler on the PM, whatever that show is, or that Mike and Pat do on Sundays, that cute little thing they do over there. They do, there's a hate week, rivalry. I'm going to call it hate week, man, but it's called rivalry week. It's rivalry week this week. And so Stephen, I guess that would probably drive me, and you'll probably kind of understand where I'm coming from this. When I was a young lad of 7, my mother awoke me one October night and said, come on, they just did it. And I'm like, who did what? And the Phillies just beat the Royals. Let's go up to Frankfurt and Cottman and celebrate. Okay, let's do it, because that's what I thought you did. And that's what I thought happened every year. Then what? A few months later, you got Wilbert Montgomery busting down the middle of Veterans Stadium en route to an NFC Championship game victory over the Dallas Cowboys. And then a year later, the Flyers were in the Stanley Cup Finals that spring. They lost it, but they were there. Then 3 years later, you got the Sixers finally winning NBA championship glory. You mix in another Phillies World Series run in there. Yeah, I thought that's how it was supposed to be every year. I thought that's how things were. And that's what sports was. And that galvanized me as an Eagle or a Philadelphia sports fan. But lo and behold, boy, was I wrong. The 80s were barren. The 90s were real bad. And then and then in the process of all that, I am watching the one consistent thing when it came to football. When the Eagles were rotten, the other teams in the NFC East were good, and the Eagles were always the lackey of the NFC East. It was always being kicked around by the Giants, Redskins, or the Cowboys. And yes, the Cowboys always hold that special, place of hate in my heart. But it's the other teams too in the 80s that always was the Giants. It was always the Redskins. It was always the Cowboys, and never us in the Super Bowl. I mean, how many you can go back throughout the 80s? Maybe there's three years that it was another team, potentially would take out the 49ers from that mix. Their dynasty run of the 80s. I think the other NFC representatives that during those years were NFC East teams. So it was either the 49ers, called them Giants. It was the 49ers or it was the NFC East in the 80s representing the NFC, with the exception of the Bears in 85. So yeah, maybe just being the bridesmaid, being always second, and in a lot of cases deeper than that drives my winning greed. Why can't we be the 49ers? Why can't we hold 4 consecutive dynasty Super Bowl years? Why can't we be the New England Patriots or the Boston Celtics or the LA Lakers or the Edmonton Oilers? Why not us? Why not? And when I was growing up in this town, we held them accountable. We held them accountable. Booing now and being obnoxious at the stadium is some sort of like status symbol, something to put on social media. It's a joke. It's a shame what it's turned into. It's not what it was when we were growing up. When we were growing up, it was our feelings. It was our pain. It was what we expressed. We didn't want no recognition for it. The only recognition we wanted was from the team with the green helmets on the field to win. It was all. Now it's some sort of social media joke. And it's all because of these millennial woke people that have destroyed this. They don't know. And that's what drives my greed for winning. Because I want to feel it again. I want to feel it for the first time. 1 Super Bowl in 57 years, 57 plus years is not enough. 2 World Series championships and 140 years sure to hell ain't enough. What, 1 NBA or 2 NBA championships? Wait, no. The Sixers only won 1, right? I know the Warriors won a couple. 2 Stanley Cups in 50 years is not enough. It's not. You should not accept it, Philadelphia. You should never accept it. But we do now. We play the moral victory card. What dreck is that, man? It is nothing. If you ain't first, you're last. But we've accepted that mentality. We've accepted that loser mentality that, oh, okay, you know what? We'll gloss over the fact that our team can't stop anybody on the air, or we apparently don't have any other running back options. But we're winning these magical games in second halves and think that's a sustainable way of winning. It's not. That drives my greed for winning because it could be us and it should be us. But right now, I don't see it happening for the football team. Baseball team starting to scare me, and the hockey team is years away. And the basketball team, again, another mediocre dumpster fire. Yeah, that's what drives my greed. But we make excuses for it. And we as fans, the largest stakeholder in all of this, accept it. Accept second-rate losing sports in this town. This town. It's disgraceful. You should all be disgusted with yourselves that you've accepted this. And you should not be trying to hold people accountable. So yes, Stephen, to answer your question, that's what drives my greed. Oh man. What effed up our generation was the 80 to 83. We always thought it was going to be. Then 90, 94 showed up. Well, don't forget, you had 93 in there. You know, that was and I always thought though, 92, if the Phillies had been healthy, they might have been a playoff team in 92. They weren't healthy, so but 93 was fun. But you're right, there wasn't really anything sustainable there. I'll believe that. 83 was a magical year. It was a magical time. All 4 teams were like right there, you know? All 4 teams were hovering right in there. The Eagles were the first ones to fall off, and then it was, I would imagine it would be the Phillies after that, and then the Sixers, and then the Flyers, right? Kind of in that order. But you're right. 83 was a carrot type of time, you know, right there in front of us. Absolutely. Because I used to feel that way. Then the Eagles and Phillies won. The losses just don't feel as they still feel as dissatisfying as they do to me. You know what? We shoo-shooed the Phillies disaster. I think I was the only one who really kind of put up any sort of fight about it. Right? We shoo-shooed it. We tried to pull the positives out of it. I don't know how you pull positives out of taking a step backwards. I don't know how you pull the positives of a World Series team. A team that was in the World Series last year had World Series expectations, no matter what anybody else wants to say. That's what we thought. And then they finished in in the NLCS. So again, it's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. Maybe my wing season maybe my wing season ticket experience chilled me out. 95, 98, and 2002. I remember the Wings with the Gate brothers back in the late 80s when they were really good. Gary and Paul Gate. You remember that, Stephen? You remember that in 2001. And Jabari says, fly, Eagles fly. All right. You know, so I agree. All right, let's transition, folks, because we're running late. Let's get into some Flyers hockey right now. Heading into tomorrow night, The Flyers. They're going to battle the Hurricanes, it seems like, for the 50th time this year. They've already played them twice, and they've done pretty well against them, to be honest with you. But heading into this game tomorrow night down there at Wells Fargo, the Flyers are 11-9-1 for 23 points. Their power play seems to still be operating on the critical mass side of things, 7 for 69 for 10%. But their penalty kill, really, really effective, 56 times or 67 times shorthanded, 56 kills for 83.6, about 84%. They're scoring. They've scored 64 goals for 3 a game, and they're only giving up 58. So they're giving up less than 3, and they're scoring more than 3, hence the record of over 500. And the OT record's 1-1, and that shootout record, virtue of the game on Saturday night, which was a really good game if you're a Flyers fan, a very promising game for a team like the Flyers to kind of skate with the Islanders, who really are not that good. And I'll give you the Islanders are not that good, but they're a playoff team. And they've given the Flyers fits, and Shazorkin is one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the league. And they hung with them, even though they couldn't get one goal by them. Sam Ersson kept the Islanders off the board. So, they're 1-0 in shootouts. They got 5 shorthanded goals. And all in all, pretty good things, 11-9-1. Ristolainen's back from the injured reserve. We only have one player we have no players on IR. We only have one on LTIR, which is Ryan Ellis, which, of course, he'll be there until his contract expires. And the drama with the Morgan Frost stuff still continues. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? He did play on Saturday, and the Flyers win. But who knows if he'll play tomorrow? And who knows what his future is in here in Philadelphia. I definitely equate Morgan Frost's situation with the movie Moneyball. I don't think Tortorella is the biggest Morgan Frost guy, and I obviously think Danny Briere is. And there seems to be this back and forth. I'm not going to play him. The lineup is mine. I'm the coach. I'm not going to play him. And Danny Briere saying, well, I really like him. You need to play him. The bottom line with Morgan Frost is you either play him or trade him. And Morgan Frost is doing nothing for the Flyers at all for sitting out. If he's not good enough, if you don't like him, then come to a common occurrence on that. Figure something out and get him out of town. Bring back something of some value and go on. Or play him, let him suffer through his setbacks, let him suffer through his growing pains, and make him part of this team going forward. But sitting him every other night and playing this yo-yo thing with him is doing absolutely nothing for Morgan Frost. But right now, the Flyers seem to be buying in on what John Tortorella is selling, and tomorrow night they will re-engage the Canes in South Philadelphia for a 7:30 start. Let's kind of look at the lineup as it is right now. Don't forget, here on the Edge of Philly Sports, we got you covered. Talking Philly Sports with me, Party on Broad a little bit in a few minutes. The NFL Draft Show, and they get processed. Lakers Sixers post game tomorrow. Kelly Green, Birds of the Round Table, Chalk Talk, and as I mentioned, clearing the ice. I think I got the call. I am on the call tomorrow, so clearing the ice with the Hurricanes. So make sure you're checking all that out and much, much more here on the Edge of Philly Sports. And don't forget, if you're looking to travel like the pros, head on to Philly Sports Trips for everything that if you're looking to experience what it's like to travel with a major league or NFL or NHL or MLS team, then you need to go to Philly Sports Trips because they got you covered in that whole experience. Don't forget, they got the London trip coming up next summer when the Phillies go to London and play the Mets. They got their the Phillies spring training. I got to get better graphics than this. They got the Phillies spring training. They got 3 separate trips heading down to Clearwater, March 1st to the 4th, and March 13th to the 18th, and March 15th through the 20th. So make sure you head over to phillysportstrips.com and check out everything that they have to offer. And then after you're done with that, and you're feeling like you've been kind of like dealt a bad hand, well, Dave Cherry is the man. You got to call 610-565-0300 for workman's compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, or criminal law. Visit Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300 and tell him Matty B and the Edge of Philly Sports sent you. And let me get a couple of them from Steven here. Was Saturday night and the first time the Flyers goalie stopped every single puck, including every single shootout in the round. Yep, it was. It was actually the first time it's ever happened. Yep. Good point, Steven. Sam Ersson now has that dubious honor of being the first Flyer goalie ever to stop every puck in regulation, a overtime, and a shootout since, of course, the NHL adopted the shootout as a permanent form of settling games. And Steven says, I think Danny Briere sees a very good young Danny Briere and Morgan Frost before he had his confidence. Let us not forget Briere wasn't good until he was 24, almost the same thing. I don't see nothing is similar between the player Danny Briere was and Morgan Frost. Nothing similar. Morgan Frost is not as fast as Danny Briere. I think maybe Morgan Frost at one time was touted to be that way, and I think a lot of people kind of had him like imaged that way. And maybe you're right. The GM sees a little bit of himself in that. I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is between Danny, John, and Morgan. Obviously, it's not a good one. It's tumultuous. It's creating some waves. There's no other way to justify why he's not playing every night. Because, okay, if you don't want to play him, then send him to the minors. They're not even doing that. They're sitting him out. So there's something going on there. I equate it to the Moneyball situation where the coach is like, you know what, I'm not playing anybody I don't want to play. It's my lineup. And then the GM saying, well, I'm not getting rid of them, so you're going to have to figure it out. I just see something like that kind of happening. Of course, nobody in the vaunted Flyers media will ever ask that question because they're a bunch of soft little you-know-whats as well. Those guys down there, all of them, every last single one of them needs to be fired. The whole new group of Flyers media people need to go in there, get rid of every single one of them. They're garbage. But no one asked that question. So I would be interested to know what that answer is as well. So folks, listen, that's going to do it for me. And I want to thank you for coming along the ride on the crazy train tonight, as I was able to kind of voice some of my displeasure with the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles. That's right, as crazy as that sounds. I have displeasure, but it's been awesome. Don't forget, later this week, Saturday, the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn. Me and Kyle will break down this Bills game. I promise I won't go. Maybe I will go on. If he prods me into it, I will go on another rant. But we're going to break down the Bills game and look ahead at maybe the most important game of this season, and maybe of the last few seasons, as the Eagles get ready to host the 49ers on Sunday as well. I didn't get into the Eagle fake rivalry with the 49ers. I'll save that for Kyle because maybe I'll ask him as my question of the week and see where his take on that is. But don't forget to check us out here on Saturday, and we'll be coming at you around noon. So until then, you guys have a great Philly sports week, and that is the news, and I'm out of here.